I'm not going to get into exactly what I saw. It's dark. It's real dark.
Disturbing new details tonight surrounding what was found inside the home of Eugene Horsch on the 400 block of Chew Avenue in Olney. Tonight, police revealed they have opened a death investigation after reviewing some of the 600,000 images and 70,000 videos found on hard drives in the home.
While searching the first hard drive, homicides detectives found the images and video of what appeared to be two deceased females.
There are houses you walk into, then there are houses that feel like they've been waiting for you. The OLNEY house in Philadelphia is the kind of place where the walls seem to hold onto the past, a dark, quiet home with secrets buried inside it, secrets that for years remained hidden behind closed doors. But what if the most frightening thing about this house wasn't what people believed was haunting it? What if the real horror was what police discovered when they finally went inside? Hidden compartments, vats filled with chemicals, a 55-gallon drum connected to water lines disappearing into the ground, documents belonging to women who had simply vanished. And inside the house, investigators found a handwritten letter containing disturbing references to hurting people and even the name of one of America's most infamous serial killers. Not only that, but they found snuff films. Suddenly, this wasn't just an old, unsettling house. It was a house full of questions, and some of those questions may be leading investigators back to women who had disappeared years earlier. Tonight, my true crime nerds were going inside the OLNEY house, and we're going to uncover what police found there. The women whose disappearance brought investigators to this home and the disturbing mystery that still surrounds what happened behind these walls. It's a breaking case. Tonight, my true crime nerds were going inside. Hello, my name is Holly, and this is the Murder She Shed. Well, not exactly. It was hotter than the devil's armpit inside of my she shed, so I'm filming in my house. There might be a slight echo, but when you got 24-foot ceilings, that seems to happen. And we do. Yeah, we really do. I know, crazy. They go on and on and on and on. This is a place where you hear breaking news cases and rarely discuss true crime cases right from my she shed, normally. Now smash the subscribe, like, and notification button. Let's get right into this breaking case. This is a case that I believe could expose something far more disturbing than anyone initially realized. A possible father and son serial killer team. But I want to make something very clear. Everything discussed in this video is alleged until proven in court. There's been no convictions establishing these allegations as fact. And the more investigators uncover, the more it seems we may have only scratched the surface of the horrors that could be hidden inside this house. Because this isn't just a house with a dark history, it may be a house hiding secrets that someone desperately wanted to keep buried. Long before Olney became the Philadelphia neighborhood we know today, this land was home to the Lenape people. And the Lenape passed down stories from generation to generation, stories of spirits, strange beings, and things that were not meant to be encountered after dark. One of those stories tells of a terrifying monster that preyed upon people. Could an ancient story have somehow been warning of what was still to come? Over the centuries, the area would transform, becoming home to generations of people from many different cultures and backgrounds. In Olney, a neighborhood in Philadelphia, stands a brick house at 417 West Chew Avenue. Its walls weathered by time, its windows dark, and its facade bearing the quiet evidence of generations who came and went. But this house wasn't always Eugene Horsch's. However, it belonged to his family for 4 generations. In 2024, the owner of the house was Raymond Horsch, who acquired the home from his sister Helen when she passed away. The home belonged to Raymond and Helen's parents before it was passed down to them. Helen was the only one of the Horsch children who remained in the family home at 417 West Chew Avenue. She never married and she remained there while the rest of her family moved on with their lives. When Helen passed away in 2004, the property came into Raymond's hands after he was released from prison. In 2006, his son Eugene then purchased the Olney home from his father for just $1. Raymond passed away in 2025 from severe COPD. To understand the mystery surrounding 417 West Chew Avenue, to understand what investigators would eventually find behind those weather walls, We have to go back to June 19, 2026. It was around 8 in the morning on June 19 when Federal Park Ranger Paul Schultz was making his patrol near Independence Hall. The streets were beginning to come alive, but something caught his attention at the corner of 6th and Market Street. A BMW was parked illegally beside a fire hydrant. At first, it probably seemed like an ordinary traffic violation, something minor. But as the ranger approached the vehicle, he noticed a woman sitting in the passenger seat. He walked towards the driver's window, and then without warning, the woman suddenly cried out, "You're going to hurt me." Schultz observed that the woman appeared extremely agitated and had visible skin sores that, according to his observations, were consistent with heavy stimulant use. His attention turned toward the driver, Eugene Horsch. Schultz ordered Horsch to show him his hands, but instead of complying, Eugene reached down beneath the driver's seat. So the ranger drew his weapon and ordered both occupants out of the BMW. Once they were outside, the vehicle was searched, and beneath the very seat where Eugene had just reached was a loaded gun. He also found switchblades and more, a collapsible baton, a cattle prod, handcuffs with keys, a glass pipe, and drugs, and 2 forged credential badges purporting to identify Eugene as a drug enforcement officer. They were under the alias Eugene Frederick Steiner. The woman passenger had an ID with her picture, but the name on the ID did not belong to her. The name on the ID was Blair Tonzelli, who went missing in 2023. Eugene told the officers the ID was not hers or the because she was a good girl. When police questioned her, the passenger admitted that Eugene had manufactured the counterfeit ID for her, instructing her to present Blair Tonzelli's name if law enforcement ever pulled them over. She told detectives she did not even know who the woman was, but that the ominous way Eugene spoke about Blair around the house had led her to believe something bad had happened to her. And now detectives had a missing woman's identity in their hands, a loaded weapon, a counterfeit ID, and a man who appeared to know far more about a missing woman than he should. Those discoveries would ultimately lead investigators away from the streets of Philadelphia and straight to that home at 417 West Chew Avenue. And when officers entered the home, they would make a series of horrifying discoveries. The house had boarded up windows and security cameras mounted between them. A fire had burned the upper floors months earlier and plywood covered the openings. Blair Tonzelli's authentic bank debit card was lying alongside several counterfeit ID cards made out in Blair's name. This was the same woman from the ID that Eugene's passenger had given to the police. This woman has past history inside this house of horrors. Blair was working as a caregiver in the house in 2022 for Eugene's sick, aging father, Raymond. A witness would tell police that while Blair was caring for Raymond inside the home, she had an argument with Eugene about her wages as a caregiver. That same witness alleged to investigators that during the dispute, Eugene claimed to know of industrial chemicals capable of melting human remains so thoroughly that a body could be flushed down a drain. Blair was 34 years old when she went missing, and on her Facebook profile, she lists university coursework. But somehow, life didn't go as planned and she became trapped in a severe opioid addiction. Blair was reported missing to Philadelphia police in early 2023. Yet, her case was not entered into the National Missing Persons Database until June 23, 2026. You notice the date is after the police found her IDs inside the house. And the discoveries inside that house were about to become even more disturbing. Investigators found drugs, ammunition, and additional counterfeit ID documents. But among the items seized was something that immediately raised even more questions. A piece of writing about serial killer Ted Bundy that referenced zip ties in a drum. The note read, "Acting on emotion is where problems occur. What I don't think I told you was that the first time it was planned ahead of time. The threat was made before you know who came over, and I already had a 2-foot zip tie in my pocket and a drum set up. I'd been ready and waiting, and I damn sure showed no hesitation," adding that it was fun. The note also mentioned killings and the phrase, "trash that needs to go." Who actually wrote the disturbing note remains unclear. Eugene's attorney later suggests that Raymond may have been the author. But I want to add that Eugene's attorney was also his father's attorney when his father was alive. So he has been the family attorney for years. There was one more document in the basement, a death certificate for a woman who had died the year before. I'll explain who this death certificate belonged to in time. Then investigators began going through the computers and hard drives found inside the home, and what they discovered was massive. Approximately 600,000 images and 70,000 videos were recovered from the residence. Investigators described some of the videos as extremely dark and disturbing. In footage, they reviewed 2 girls who appeared to be live at the beginning, but after a period of time, the same girls appeared to be deceased. Investigators were essentially looking at footage that appeared to document the deaths of 2 people, like real films that people say don't exist. The women are identified as Maribel Frasas and Gabrielle Almirondo, who were both born in 1990. Maribel was reported missing in February 2018, and Gabrielle was missing since September of 2012. However, so far, detectives have not been able to find their bodies. The ME confirmed that based on the photos and video evidence, the 2 women are definitely dead. They cannot verify how they died, although they had lots of injuries on their body. Police were also able to track down people seen in those videos who are still alive. They have been interviewed, though police would not reveal what these people had to say. And here's the part that makes this even more disturbing. The digital evidence was so extensive that investigators have reviewed only a small portion of it, meaning they could locate more women who died on video inside that home. In a hidden basement, officers found numerous hazardous chemicals. The sheer amount of chemicals in the strange setup prompted police to call in the FBI, which will help further investigate exactly what kind of materials Eugene had been hoarding inside this house. This brings us back to what a witness said about Eugene having chemicals in the house capable of melting human remains. The basement was arranged like a laboratory. Drums and bottles of chemical that forensic team could not immediately name. Some of the containers contained an oily unknown substance. In the basement, they also located a 55-gallon drum connected to water lines which ran underneath the house. There were hidden compartments inside the house and hollowed-out stairs containing a concealed space. 5 urns were located inside the home. One of the urns actually held his father's ashes. So far, they believe the home is connected to at least 4 missing women, and strangely, there were 4 other urns found besides Raymond's urn. Investigators dug beneath the property and removed an underground pipe connected to the home's plumbing system and the drum, hoping it might contain forensic evidence. They also used a camera to look inside the pipes. Now, I believe the father's history plays a big part in what is being found inside this home. So when we tell his story, it's going to put the extra creep factor in an already horrifying tale. So you need to stay and listen. According to Raymond, or Ray as he preferred to be called, he was from a normal family and was brought up on a farm. His father was a World War II glider pilot, so he became interested in planes and was able to get a pilot's license when he became an adult. As a teenager, Ray said he was fascinated by movies and not necessarily the heroes. He enjoyed pretending to be the villain. Looking back, he described himself as an asexual nerd during high school, but as he grew older, his interests would become considerably darker. Ray eventually served in the Army, but he deserted. Years later, he received a presidential pardon from Jimmy Carter. In 1964, Ray married his 19-year-old high school sweetheart. The newlyweds moved to Philadelphia, settling in the Rittenhouse Square neighborhood. His wife worked as a public school teacher while Ray took commercial film and photography jobs. The marriage only lasted 5 years. Ray's first job was far removed from the world of filmmaking. He worked for a company that installed surveillance equipment on telephones so businesses could monitor their employees. He even mentioned he was involved in Watergate. Don't know how big of a liar he is. According to Ray, however, the work went beyond simply listening in. He claimed part of his job involved helping steal from some of the very people and companies he was supposed to monitor. Then came the world of film. Ray began picking up small acting roles, and according to his own colorful account, he joked that he wasn't getting those parts because of his good looks, but because of his large physical appendage. In 1968, he operated a venue called Underground Cinema 16. It was eventually shut down for operating without a license. But Ray wasn't finished. This is actually terrifying, but Ray, on a freelance basis, made many live-action clips for the children's television workshop, Sesame Street. during his pioneering first years in 1969. He moved deeper into filmmaking, eventually directing an erotic film titled The Erotic Memoirs of a Male Chauvinist. The film premiered in Philadelphia in 1973, the 1812 Theater. The film was a low-budget production that depicted bondage, underage, and violent relationships involving drug-addicted women. Yet Ray would later describe the film as a sweet comedy. Also during this period, he began a career as a performer by doubling for Harry Reams, saying he got the job by being able to get fast, and then he hung a towel from his large, As his career continued, he expanded into photography and writing, producing books and other works that repeatedly returned to themes of violence against women. The material he was creating was becoming increasingly centered around dominations, violence, and women being subject to abuse. Ray also described himself as a sociopath and said he embraced a sadomasochistic lifestyle. In his own author bio, he listed himself as an art forger, a counterfeiter, a fugitive, a sociopath, and an all-out villain. Ray would offer drugs, cash, and shelter to women struggling with addiction in exchange for nude photos and video shoots. Some of those video shoots were done inside the OLNEY house. Ray had a criminal past as well. Most of it occurred in the 70s. He was busted for a counterfeiting operation in 1974 and busted again in 1977 for meth lab. In 1980, while he was running from the law, he married his second wife, Anna. In 1981, while his father was still a fugitive, Eugene Horsch was born. The FBI caught up with him in Orlando and extradited him to Philadelphia in 1985. A psychologist in a court-ordered exam noted that Raymond had an IQ of 140 but suffered from deep-rooted emotional problems. After an early release from prison in 1997, Raymond moved his family to Northeast Philadelphia and got a job as an IT director. His wife, Anna, found work cleaning houses. Although Raymond claimed he never took drugs, allegedly, he later says he had pot for artistic reasons, but even though he operated a meth lab, he's not admitting to it. But he said his wife was a drug addict. She died from an alleged drug overdose in 1989 at the age of 39. Ray wrote a book about her called Annie. Their son Eugene, then just 7 years old, was in the room at the time of her overdose. By the 90s, Ray started performing in films. It was no secret to Eugene about what his father did. In fact, hanging on the wall of their home was a huge photograph of his father with thinning hair and a ponytail, receiving from a woman while she held to his head. Eugene was a straight-A student, but he was extremely embarrassed of his father, who his classmates referred to as creepy. As Eugene became a teen, he started stealing and smoking weed. I can't imagine why. He had an older cousin who was a role model and one of his best friends. But when Eugene was in high school, his cousin at age 19 crashed a convertible and died. The loss devastated Eugene. Eugene never finished high school. In 2003, following a night of drinking at a Northeast Philly bar, Eugene blew a red light and T-boned another car. The driver suffered a catastrophic brain injury and spent 16 years in a vegetative state before dying. In 2004, Eugene pleaded guilty to driving under the influence and aggravated assault. He was sentenced to 2 to 4 years in prison. Ray then met his third wife, Amy McHale, in the 1990s, and she went missing in 2016. Raymond met Amy McHale in Kensington. She was struggling with mental health issues and a drug and alcohol addiction, and she came to view Raymond as her savior after he got her off the streets. She co-starred in him with the film. In 2004, Amy, 30 years Ray's junior, later married him beside a greenhouse in the backyard of his home before he came to live in the OLNEY house. The same year, Raymond inherited the OLNEY house from his sister after her death. Then when Eugene was released from prison in 2006, as we know, the house became his. Amy and Ray were divorced 3 or 4 years later. Even after the divorce, the two remained friends, and Amy continued returning to Raymond's home. She was at the Chew Avenue home on June 13, 2016, when she called her mom to tell her she was coming home. She sounded drunk, so her mother told her just to stay. Early the next morning, Amy, who was 44 years old and a grandmother of 3 by then, left a voicemail with her daughter saying she was okay. She was never heard from again. When police talked to Ray about the disappearance, he said she was drinking vodka and he went to bed. When he woke up, she was gone. Amy's mom said that Amy had told her at one point, if anything ever happens to me, look at Ray. We've already discussed how Blair Tonzelli went missing in 2023 after becoming Ray's caregiver. among all the women who came and went from the OLNEY property. One woman had been part of Raymond Horsch's world for years. Her name was Krista Killen. Her connection to Raymond went back to 2003 when she appeared in one of his films, Slaves. During one scene, Raymond ate a raw steak and drank what was presented as blood. Krista later recalled feeling really uneasy during the filming. She remembered wondering whether Raymond might actually hurt her. Ray reassured her that it was only a movie and told her there was nothing to be afraid of. But Krista's relationship with Ray didn't end when the camera stopped rolling. Over the years, she lived at the OLNEY house on and off while continued to work in the sex trade. As Raymond's eyesight began to deteriorate, Krista also became someone he relied on to help him with everyday things, including driving him around in his older Chrysler. Their relationship could be volatile. According to someone who knew Krista, Raymond would become angry when she left. On one occasion, he reportedly posted a photograph of Krista while she was suffering through drug withdrawal, apparently intending to embarrass her. Despite everything, Krista said she wasn't afraid that Ray himself would hurt her. What frightened her was someone else. She was uneasy about being alone inside the house with Raymond's son Eugene. By late 2024, Krista's health had taken a devastating turn. Sadly, after battling an infection in her leg for years, doctors were forced to amputate her leg above the knee. Then just a month later, her little cat, baby cat, passed away. He died from a brain tumor. And Raymond himself was becoming increasingly frail. When he died in May 2025, Krista was suddenly left inside the OLNEY house with Eugene. Just 3 days after Raymond's death, disaster struck again. A cigarette left burning ignited a fire in Krista's second-floor bedroom. She had moved into that room after amputation, and the blaze destroyed most of what she owned. The fire would lead investigators to make another discovery inside that property: firearms and a growing operation. Eugene was arrested and jailed once again. But the damage to the house went far beyond what police had uncovered. The flames had ripped open part of the roof, leaving the house exposed to the elements. Whenever it rained, water poured through the damaged roof and into the kitchen, dining room, and the bedroom where Krista had been living. Then just 3 months after Raymond's death, tragedy struck again. And on August 16, 2025, Krista allegedly died from a drug overdose. But what happened afterwards left her friends deeply unsettled. Eugene took to Krista's own Facebook page and announced her death himself. In the post, he claimed that he and Krista had been in love, that the two of them had been planning to get married. But according to her friends, neither claim was true. And with Krista gone, another woman who had spent years coming and going from that house was no longer there to tell her side of the story. In fact, that's the death certificate that the officers found inside the house. It was Krista's. Ray's books didn't shy away from anything. Detailed accounts of sadomasochistic slavery, the mind of a serial killer who feels too much, stories of addicts, pimps, and people destroyed by their own desires. His films ran along the exact same lines as his books and photography. Graphic, controlling, and often centered on the same dark underworld that police would later start digging through at the same OLNEY house after his death. He wrote Empathy as an autobiographic memoir of a caring, empathetic serial killer. It is presented as an autobiography, though he framed it as fiction. The style is deliberately intimate and first person, which only makes the later real-world connection feel more unsettling. I actually read this disturbing book so I could find out what made Ray click. It's very interesting that the character in the book also was raised on a farm. It talks about how a hired hand taught him how to herd animals. On a podcast, he discussed how he had a hard time getting girls as a teen, and his first sexual experience was with the pool. And in the book, it says the same.
My second love was a swimming pool in Stroudsburg, a municipal swimming pool. That had an outlet where the water was pumped back into the pool. It was about 2 feet below the surface, so I could hang on the edge of the pool and quietly pull my pants down.
So wait, neither of these experiences were with anyone else?
That, to me, women were really kind of an anticlimax.
The character in the book married his childhood sweetheart. Same for him in real life. In the book, he takes photos of drug-addicted prostitutes just as he did in real life. He also has such rough sex with a woman that she ends up dying, and guess what? The character takes the woman's body to his basement and dissolves it with chemicals. Sounds very familiar about the things they're finding in there now. In the 2013 RIALTO Report podcast, Ray leans fully into the villain persona. He talks about his extreme work and expresses deep contempt for humanity.
I came out of the theater wanting to be the villain. I guess I subliminally identified with because I certainly became a villain later in life. I do not like society. I do not like civilization. Individual human beings I can like, admire, even love, but the human race and what we call civilization are something that I really despise.
I also found a YouTube video which discusses how he feels about addiction, too, and the women that are addicted.
There are a lot of people on welfare working minimum wage jobs who are like totally, relentlessly, horribly exploited all the time. I'm not saying that a prostitute can't or isn't exploited, but sex work is like any other work, any other industry. That said, not every woman in Kensington is a I mean, sometimes even in Kensington, a woman standing on a street corner actually is waiting for the bus.
On the bottom of the RIALTO report, Amy McHale, his ex-wife, actually left a comment. Said she'd been married to him for 3 years, performed in some of his work, and that the podcast only covered less than 10% of his life. She defended him against being purely evil while confirming the chaotic lifestyle. She also added Ray was always bringing home stray women like some people bring home stray cats. She said, I never knew who I'd wake up in the bed with in the morning. Eugene was in prison at the time Amy went missing in June 2016. Ray, who had a pattern of contacting her family whenever she wasn't doing well or when he hadn't seen her for a few days, went completely silent after her disappearance.
We got together and made the film in one afternoon, pretty much in real time, just the two of us, no crew or anything like that. Did it exactly as though I were the serial killer and she was the victim. I would be filming her. So it's very much an experimental film, but it's also a chillingly realistic horror film. Her performance in it as a victim was completely flawless and believable. And I, of course, was kind of a natural as a perverted serial killer. It wasn't much of a stretch at all.
The raid on the OLNEY home in 2026 was not the first time this house was raided. In 2009, a 21-year-old woman addicted to drugs was picked up by Ray and living inside the OLNEY house so he could take nude photos of her. On July 22nd, the woman called 911 because she believed someone was breaking into the home. Police found no intruder, but while checking the house, they discovered a large indoor grow operation in the basement, 455 plants. Officers also recovered bondage equipment, graphic photographs, material, and about 25 pounds of black powder. On the podcast, Ray discussed this raid and said at the time the officers took all the computer equipment from his home. But from what I understand, he did have hidden compartments inside the home, so maybe they didn't take everything. The two women whose images were recovered from inside the OLNEY house, Maribel Fresas and Gabrielle Amaranda, both fit the exact profiles that haunted Ray's work. Both struggled with addictions, both were vulnerable, both belonged to the world of damaged, disposable women that filled his books, his films, and his photography. The same kind of women he wrote about being used, controlled, and ultimately destroyed. When Gabrielle disappeared in 2012, Ray was in prison, but Eugene was not. When Maribel disappeared in 2018, Ray was 74 years old but was not in prison. Eugene was sentenced to 4 to 8 years in prison for the grow operation inside the OLNEY house. He could have been released earlier than the full term. The exact date isn't public, so the windows stay open for Maribel and Gabrielle. But he was still locked up when Amy McHale disappeared in 2016. That one falls squarely in the years Ray was free and living in the house. If Eugene is responsible for the two women on those tapes, then he learned how to treat them from the man who raised him. Ray spent decades writing, filming, and photographing the same kind of broken, addicted women who later appeared first alive, then dead. The father chronicled the control and the silence. The son grew up inside that world. Police have reviewed roughly 5% of the video's images and files pulled from inside the house. Hundreds of thousands of images, tens of thousands of videos, thousands of pages of writing. Most of it is still waiting to be examined. 2 women already appear dead in the material they've seen. What else is still sitting in the other 95%? Could the rest of the digital evidence, the items recovered, and the DNA still being tested point to something even darker? A father and son working as a team? And how many more women may have fallen victim to the horrors that took place inside this house? It's just a really disturbing story. I hope they get answers for all the families that may be affected by these two. Say bye. I'll see you next time on Murder GTA. I don't know where Max is. I think he's behind us. But anyway, see y'all next time. And it'll be pretty soon because I already filmed another video. And that's actually was going to do that one first. Then I ended up doing this one. Because, yeah, it was more of a breaking case. All right. Love y'all as always. Bye.